First item of business is the minutes from the December planning meeting. Did I include them? I'm not sure I've got all my pages here. Any questions or problems with anything?
I think say is misspelled as say is in those minutes.
In the December, I don't have all my agenda here. You know what? I changed the planning calendar. Let me see if it's out of order.
You know what, Annette, I see what you're saying, and Debbie, I can show it to you tomorrow if that would help, but yeah.
Martin Luther King, where it says Martin Luther King say, instead of Martin Luther King Day.
And
We can get that fixed.
on page 4,
Page 3,
It says, the title of the paragraph is proposed 2021 meeting calendar.
yep,
And then at the bottom of the paragraph, it says we meet on the first and third Monday, except when there's a federal holiday, Martin Luther King, and then it says say.
okay, I'll correct that. Any other?
I think on that same page, at the very top where it says committee members present, there's a list of who was present, but at the end of the sentence, it says we're absent. And I think you meant present.
Okay.
Again, I can show this to you tomorrow if that would be
I
easier.
would appreciate that because I have page 1, 2, up. You know what I do is I look at the previous months, and if somebody was absent that month, I just cut and paste their name, but I didn't catch that. So, okay, so I got that on the minutes and then on the calendar. Okay, anybody have any problems in general with any of the meeting dates or times? The yellow highlights are basically dates we don't know yet, such as the Ohio Library Council trustees dinner, their trustee workshop. Kim or Nancy, do you know if they're going to do the workshop that
We
virtual
don't know yet.
wants to participate?
They don't
know yet.
they don't know. I can say that OLC has decided not to have any in-person meetings until June at the earliest. So that's going to push back some of the things that they typically have in the spring. That's the most recent decision that they've made. I do have a meeting with some OLC staff next week. So if anything changes, I'll certainly share it with all of you. But right now, that they don't want to commit to anything before June.
Next item for the planning committee is just for information purposes, a timeline of the construction and everything for the Coventry HVAC system. We received, how many proposals did we get, Nancy? Like 8?
No, there were 12.
12, okay.
And Julia's in the process of bringing those down to our 3 best ones to interview. And we'll find, I know, that's great. We'll be interviewing them next week, and we'll have one to recommend to you to approve.
I think it's the week after because next Monday's the 11th, and aren't we doing them like the 18th?
I'm sorry, yes. Yeah, sorry, my head is fuzzy. We will, I know there's one that's local, that's really, really on the ball, that's done all sorts of over and above things, so I can, pretty sure that we're going to interview them. There are others that have more or less knowledge of the library and the way libraries work, although I don't know if that matters with systems. For me, it would be more important that they understand how to connect it to Medicis and how to work with a historic thing that they're going to have to retrofit with these new, with the new plumbing and things. So we'll give you, we made a grid. Julia's filling it out and she's going to send it to me while I'm still in quarantine this week. And then we'll have reasons why we will give you recommendations for one or the other. I went out of town, so out of an abundance of caution, I'm working at home this week and I'm gonna get tested. But I'm fine. There's no reason to worry. But everything went really well, and we got tons of applications, and they're this thick, and there's a lot to go through. So we'll have a lot to tell you when we get there. I would like to, since we're talking about planning and external relations, I would like to add one new item. Right before I left town for my little vacation, we did have more information to share with you about Noble. Nothing too detailed because it's too early to share with the public, but we are examining another opportunity that has arisen for us to possibly provide more space for services in the neighborhood to our customers. And we are going to do a couple of due diligence activities, a property inspection and a survey, which are very inexpensive to do, just to get some more information to share with you when we're ready to discuss real estate. And then we're also expecting to get a rendering from the Welcome House people of what they believe the building might look like for the senior housing that they're planning in the neighborhood as well, and that we have been invited to possibly occupy the first floor of. So we're going to have a lot of decisions to make, and I think there are also going to be a couple middle of the road ideas. I mean, the two deciding factors are funds and customer service. And so I think it will be a really interesting and fun project to slice and dice with you, but it is not, it is complicated. So we'll have another discussion, probably in executive session, to discuss real estate. And once we know some more feedback from these studies that we're doing, and we can share with you more information. But we do plan on having customer service surveys go out in the middle of January to just start figuring out what the most important priorities are for the public, and also for the staff, what they think we should be doing. And we'll share all of that data with you. So February, we'll have a lot of information to share about Noble. So lots going on between the two branches.
So do you anticipate having that executive session after the committee meeting in February, or?
I don't know if we'll have enough information by then, but we might.
Okay.
I'll do it as soon as we can.
Sure.
Because I really feel like there's no time to waste. The Welcome House people are going to apply for state funding for their building in February. And we told them to go ahead and do that without a commitment from us, because we don't know what we're doing. So I think all parties involved would appreciate us not going slow. You know, we won't rush either. We'll do what we have to do. But I'll keep you informed as each step happens, and we'll get an executive session planned. I just don't know when I'll know. So
Yeah,
if you,
Anything else for planning? Okay, for the operations committee, a lot of this or let's look at the minutes. Anybody, did I misspell anybody or miss anything in the minutes for the operations committee? Okay, the organizational meeting items. We start the meeting as an organizational meeting because we have to swear in people like Tyler and appoint myself, do bonds and all that. So we will be giving the oath of office to Tyler. And we've run this by you before on the slate of officers that Dana will be president, Gay vice president, Max secretary, and then Max will chair operations, Vikas will chair planning, and then Annette will chair personnel, and everyone else will rotate through the committees next year. We administer the oath of office to our officers, and then You have to technically hire me, approve setting a bond for me for $300,000. My deputy has a bond of $100,000 and Nancy has a bond for $100,000. Nancy we cover just in case that she is a backup, like Nancy knows the passwords to move money out of investments if I'm not available to do it and my deputy's not. So Nancy's covered for things like that. So then we have the oath of office. We also accept all the donations from 2020, and there's a list here of people that left us money in memory of people. The Long family, Heather Long donates money to Coventry for programming. Heather's mother, am I correct, ladies?
Yes.
Was a branch manager or an employee there?
She was the branch manager.
Branch
at
manager.
Coventry.
And I think the family's given us maybe $30,000 over the last 3 or 4 years from the estate. So
Yeah, it's
very generous.
generally around 10,000 a year.
Right. Next item we have is blank with the approval of encumbrances. I'm in the midst of closing the books for the year. We did have to make some changes in encumbrances. The one thing we're doing is making sure that all the CARES Act money is spent, and technically the bill that the president signed over the Christmas weekend, that gives us until December of 2021 to spend our $100,000 in CARES Act money. But technically we've already spent like 90,000 of it, and we're going to carry over 10,000, which will be going for touchless water bottle refill stations, and then also what we call our Dewey Cart. It's the large screen TV on a stand with a computer that we used to do some presentations like that before we got the big screen in here. And there's going to be one for Noble and Coventry and for Meeting Room A for when we do get, well, actually, I think it'll go in Meeting Room B once we do open to the public. So we're getting all the CARES money spent. So by the time I prepare the agenda for the 19th board meeting next Friday, I'll have the books closed to know what those dollar amounts are. The next big thing, main topic of discussion for tonight is Nancy has a very detailed memo with spreadsheets and the like to talk about potential changes to public service hours when we can reopen to the public after we all get vaccinated and COVID does go away. So Nancy.
So before I start, the most important priority right now is returning us to our normal hours of operation. We are not there yet. We're still on reduced hours. So this is a discussion to be had for when we actually can expand beyond that. So I just want to separate those two things. The one thing we did not do at the beginning of the meeting was introduce everybody. So I do want to do that. So Dana Flewellen-Tai is going to be our president next year. Dana has all kinds of business experience and also is very involved in the school district. And then the vice president, I believe, is Max. Is that correct, Max?
Gabe.
Gabe, okay, Gabe. And she should be joining us any minute. She's gonna come on at 7. And then it's Max?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so Max will be the secretary. And the positions are very informal, but it is a chain of command, and it's basically built by the years of experience that you have on the board. But we've had a couple of people who have left early and others have replaced them. So when you look at the roster, I don't know if you can tell, but we've had to move some people around. So that'll become more important later on, but it's not important now. And then well, I don't know if you see them in the same order, but Vikas Tarakia is a teacher in the Orange schools and the parent of young children. Patty Carlisle is a marketing and PR professional. Is that correct? Would you say that, Patty? She's a very active community member in University Heights. and an amazing writer,
Thanks.
which I have known, that's how I know Patty from me. And then Annette Iwamoto works for Providence, which is a nonprofit that helps children and parents under 5. Is that correct?
We go up to 12, but
Oh,
the
you
main
go up to 12. Okay. And they're moving to Buckeye, which is really exciting. So they'll be on the east side.
Oh, it's great. And Providence House just celebrated a anniversary in the last couple of years, right? Like
it's going
10
to be our 40th year this year.
Yeah. Yeah, my wife made cookies. I think it must have been your 35th or something for a big celebration of the anniversary. So I'm very familiar with Providence
Oh,
House.
is that what we had at our luncheon?
Yeah, they're a little shape in the cake.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was for our founder. It was her 90th birthday. And that's
Oh, okay.
why we did that.
Wow.
Cookies. I ate them. We had some leftovers that I ate daily until they were gone.
My retirement plan is to volunteer at Providence House. That's my retirement plan. And then who else didn't I get? Then Max is a negotiator for the AFSCME, right?
SEIU.
SEIU, sorry, SEIU. Also grew up, did you grow up here?
Euclid.
Euclid, okay. And what it's funny, what I know about Max now is that he's a prolific reader. He is on social media. I always see your name before I like something. So it's always Max before me. And all of the board members are just very, very nice people. And if you have any questions about anything, they all will be happy to help you. I believe that Patty is the most recent member. So she shares your experience. It is overwhelming at the beginning. There's so much stuff. But most libraries, public libraries in Ohio do it this way. And, but that doesn't mean we can't change anything. So if you say, why do we meet on the first and third month? I mean, it's because most of it's tradition. So if there's something that isn't working for you or whatever, maybe if you bring it up, the others will say, yeah, me too. So just please don't hesitate to ask any questions. And when we go through orientation, we'll try to also share with you as much information as we can, but we're all available to help you at any time. And Ty is a computer systems salesperson.
Not quite, but
what is it?
close. I sell building automation controls. So like when you go to Target and you get the Target app and you map to where the bouncy paper towels are, we sell that beaconing technology. So
Very
you're close.
Yeah.
That's what my wife doesn't understand what I do really, so she says something similar to that. So
Okay.
we're pretty good.
Well, that will be very helpful. Being techie is a good thing. We need that skill on the board. And wouldn't it be cool if we could do that with books? Like we could just have like you put in the book you want and you just go right to the place on the shelf.
Yep.
Right up above it.
Part of the
Exactly.
fun is browsing.
What?
Yeah, it takes the fun out of it.
Yeah, I know, but still, it would get you there in the
Right.
general area, right? Okay, so there we are. Sorry about that interruption, but I thought it was important that we get that done. Okay, so let's talk about library hours. So first of all, I made a couple of typographical errors on my memo. We actually closed for COVID on March 13th, not the 15th. And we are currently at 160 hours of curbside and 192 hours of phone services. We close curbside when it gets dark. So curbside ends at 5:00 p.m., but the staff is still working until 9 on specific nights of the week, which you can look on the chart that I sent. And
They're Tuesdays and Thursdays.
okay, so we used to be open every day, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So getting back to that is a given. We will do that soon. Even if it's at curbside, we're already talking about restoring the hours that we had before. What I'm asking about is we have always thought that on Sundays, our most busy day, even though it's a 4-hour day, we are shooing people out of the building. And if you look at the statistics that I've shared with you, I know they're a little confusing. Some of them are a conglomeration of all of the Mondays in a year. For a particular branch, all the Mondays, all the Tuesdays, all the Wednesdays, all the Thursdays. The point is that Sunday is the busiest day. And we used to pay close attention to retail hours. That was sort of how we determined what our hours were in the past. Obviously, there are budgetary considerations and staffing considerations, and we've always not been open on Sunday mornings for religious observance by the majority of the people, but not all people. So ever since I started as director 12 years ago, I have been wondering why we don't stay open Sunday evenings. Because that is a traditional heavy homework night. And it's the only day of the week that we're actually like asking hundreds of people to leave the building when we close. The other nights of the week, generally it starts to trickle down. And I think it's a function of during the weeknights, it's sort of like whatever is your hour of closing, it's always going to slow down as you go toward that last hour. But Sundays, that has not been the case. So it's very different. And we do, just so we make it clear, we do have data to show that. So we are considering proposing extending the hours at the branches and Lee Road until 7 on Sunday, 2 more hours. In order to pay for that, we may consider closing earlier on Friday because that is the slowest night. It's a heavy night for people who are just, hi Gabe. It's a heavy night for people who are just sitting using a computer, but it's not a heavy circulation night. And I think with the computers, I've always said it's like oil, there just never is enough. Whatever hours we're open, our computers will be full. So we're not gonna ask you to make a decision today, but I did want to at least bring it up since we are going to have an opportunity in a few months when we go back to having open libraries, that we might have this chance to just extend this little bit of customer service time to the public and help with handling that heavy load on Sunday. Of course, when I mentioned it to the staff, they agree that it's a good customer service opportunity, but a number of them were a little grumbly about, you know, I do have church on Sunday, I do have this and that on Sunday, and it is one night of the week that the staff don't work at all. Saturday is the other, and they can make plans for their family, and I totally understand that. Years ago, before I was director, we did have an adder, a financial incentive for people to work on Sunday. So I think that in order to do this, I would like to offer an incentive as well. And that is explained in the memo, where it's like double time, but it isn't. In the old days when I'm sorry, I'm explaining a lot, so I apologize for being an explainer, but in the old days, the full-time staff got double time on Sunday, but the part-timers didn't, because right now, the problem is if you work on Sunday, you get paid for 4 hours and you have to make up that other 4 hours in your 8-hour day. So you have to either work another 4 hours during the week or take ETO time, take your vacation time to make up for that day so you don't have to work 6 days in a week. If we pay for that extra time and they work, is it 6 hours?
You have them work 6 hours.
Right.
For
6
8.
hours and get paid for 8, or they'll work 3 hours and get paid for 4. And it doesn't matter whether you're full or part-time. It's just how the shift is. And the managers would spread that around so that everybody would get that opportunity. And there would be an incentive for working on Sunday. Does that make sense to you?
Yes.
So, it's not a straight double time, but it's an incentive to do that. So if we cut Friday nights and we add Sundays, financial impact will not be very big. And so, that is the proposal.
Can we,
Else.
so I know we're gonna have discussion about this before we make any decision, but would it be possible to get some sort of financial model that would show what happens if we add 2 hours on Sunday without taking away any additional hours? What happens if we add the 2 hours on Sunday and then take away
Yes. Yes.
some of the time on Friday?
That would be very easy to do. I could
Great.
probably get that to you within a week.
Okay.
Work on
So,
it.
you know, like Friday evening might not be a huge time for people to be there, but it's still, you know, there are hours that we're open.
Yeah.
And if it's, you know, looking at it, if it's not going to be an enormous burden, I mean, I just know like we budgeted extremely well for the next couple of years, you know, and granted, the other shoe's going to fall at some point, right? But like
Right.
we might be in a position to actually just add additional hours on Sunday while not having to cut on Friday. The other
Yes.
thing I'm wondering too is that if staff are, and this is just me spitballing, but if staff are concerned about Sunday evenings and that being one of the few evenings off, would it be possible to look at adding in, you know, kind of doing it 12 to 6 instead of 1 to 7? Or does it open at 1 specifically to accommodate people who are going to church Sunday?
Yes.
We had a lot of conversation
We did.
about opening times. We bandied about a lot of different models.
Okay.
One thing,
Right.
Nancy, I just want to add on so that the board knows, because I know you just had lots of information.
Yeah.
If we went through with this proposed plan, which and would eliminate the Friday nights in this scenario, it still gives us a net gain of 4.5 public service hours per week, because all 4 branches would be open till 7 o'clock on Sunday. And yet we are only advocating taking away 3.5 hours on Friday nights because the branches are already closed. So,
Right.
if we were to keep the Friday nights like Max is proposing, that would result in a net gain of 8 hours of service per week. So
I have some concerns as well. I read it over, Nancy, and I thought it was a good idea. I think it's long been needed in Cleveland Heights library system. I don't have a problem. I don't think we should take away the hour on Friday. However, you have to think, and as Max stated, we'll go into it further, but I want to state these things so that they're on the record, that a big portion of what we offer, whether it's informal or not informal, is that parents heavily lean on us during the work week.
They
And
do.
if we take those Friday hours away, I have concern that we're not the support system that we've been almost always in the Cleveland Heights, University Heights district. My other concern, that it's not really a concern, I'd like to put it on record, however, is that as we just received that 5-star rating again, the beginning of December, and
Yes.
as we've gone through this pandemic, I think it is almost necessary that you have to raise your bar. And so we need additional evening hours. No one saw this, coming before it hit us, February of last year. However, think how much more we know from what we're getting with the curbside service, how much more it was always needed, how much
Yes.
more so now will
Yes.
our patrons need additional hours, because we do so much now on Zoom and with computers, etc. And we know the pandemic will be over eventually, or some mode or fashion, cease
Yeah.
to some. However, I do think to try to return to previous lifestyle, which wasn't the best mode. And I happen to know that when we got that 5-star rating, it did not include the pandemic stuff. It only goes through 2018, right, when they're
Correct.
judging us. So
Yeah.
imagine if we want to be the leaders, again, that's always my mindset with our district, and our library system is, why wouldn't we be adding additional hours? And what better day than Sunday when we know our students, our adult patrons, and our children would all benefit. I do think that that's a good thing what we're adding for the staff. So I just wanted to put it out there. I'm sure I'll have more things to say, but I just thought that I'm not pro cutting Friday off earlier.
Excellent.
Okay.
For that,
So I just want to share,
go ahead, Kim.
can I say something, Nancy? Just
Yeah,
to-
please, go ahead.
I've probably spent about 25% of this past year looking at different staffing models to populate the libraries as we've gone through several iterations of service. If we were to continue Friday nights at Lee Road, I'm confident we could do that with existing staff. However, to add hours to the branches, to Coventry, Noble, and UH for Sundays, that may require additional staff at the branches. They're already thinly staffed. I think most of you who visit the other branches know that. We run pretty tight. When there are staffing shortages at the branches, we supply staff from Lee Road. But it does take staff if we are going to add on hours. So I just want to be very transparent about that. It could result in us needing to hire one additional timer for each branch. I'm not sure. I'd really have to work with the branch managers.
Right. So what we'll
We know
do,
that, Kim, but didn't we do away with people during this pandemic when we were trying to decide on what to do with people?
Yes.
So didn't we already cut away some people? So wouldn't hiring
did.
not be that much of an obstacle that we should have some room?
Well, yes, we do. And we still have most of our pages on furlough. But Dana, you're right. We've got a lot of positions frozen currently right now because we don't need people while we're at about 50% of what we used to do. So yeah, we've got vacancy savings from the past year. I don't know what the amount is. That's something that Nancy and I could work together on.
Well, when we do this financial comparison, we'll also do a staff comparison. And, you know, the other thing is how we do our programming really matters, really affects our staffing, because when you have a program going on, you have a staff member that must be at the desk and someone who has to be doing the program. So there are some ways to wiggle that so that we can stretch the staffing. But it means being very critical, going through our programming with a fine tooth comb and making sure we're really doing things that people like. So as far as the public goes, we may do some more surveys and find out what people really want to have once we start going back. And I could also see us continuing to do some semblance of curbside and some other kinds of things that we've learned through COVID that would make it more convenient for people who have mobility problems or older people or whatever, or just convenient. So we're going to have a lot more discussion amongst the staff about what it is we're going to be doing later. Also, as we all know, the electronic offerings may change and improve. So it'll be really interesting. It's a great problem to have. And you might have seen me smiling when Dana was talking, because Dana, I agree with you. I never want to cut anything. If we're going to add something, great, let's add, but let's not take away. But we have to be fiscally responsible. So we'll be really careful. And Cleveland Heights cannot bear a lot of tax increases. So we're going to have to also look at facilities versus staff versus services when we're planning what we're going to do with these buildings, and see how that all fits into this equation as well. So again, I think we're going to have to start some, whiteboard charts and do some strategic planning things that will help us figure out what the priority is. And as we start to plan the next 10 years, the next 20 years, and what we're going to do with the buildings as well. That's part of the equation. So, but again, we have time.
Is there an opportunity to have a float staff person? Hi, everyone. Sorry, excuse my
Hi,
tardiness.
This is Ty.
Hi, Ty.
Yes, there are. And we do have people who float.
Okay.
And we do schedule people to there. We have for the part-time staff, we have something called on-call. And we make shifts available to them that are above their 20-hour limits. And they can go to pick up a shift anywhere in any of the 4 buildings just to augment their income, and also so that we can make it more of a better deal for them to work for us. And it also helps us with staffing. So, you know, that we haven't had on call since we've been on COVID hours and COVID staffing, because we didn't want people floating around to different buildings that would mess up immunity and all these things. Now we're starting to get a little looser, and we hope to start on call again. But that is always a part of the budget that is a little more soft, and we may be able to work something out. The other thing that we're noticing, which makes me feel good, is that some of the technological improvements we've made to the business office, especially, are saving us time. So we may be able to make some adjustments, not necessarily in the total number of staff, but where they work. We may be able to eliminate some hours in not customer service, not front-facing staff, and put people more toward the customer. So we will look at that as well. It's exciting, but it's complicated, like everything else. So let me get you some more information, and we'll talk about it again in February. We're not in a rush, and we really want to think long and hard about this before we do it. But just so you know, Dana, Lakewood always brags that they are open more hours than any other library system in the county. So if we could surpass them, that would not be a bad side effect of all of this.
Are they 9 to 9, 7 days a week?
9 to 9 on Friday night. They're open Sunday night. They close at 6 on Saturday. So, you know, we don't want to let anyone have an edge over us. So, and I'm not that competitive, but it's just it would be a side effect that would be nice.
And I just want to say too, I know that there's especially in Cleveland Heights, and especially after 2020 with the initial failure of the school levy, and then the very narrow success of the second school levy. I was on the Lay Finance Committee, so I was pretty intimately involved with those calculations, both economic and political. And I just think that there, you know, so I think there's a temptation to compare those two, since we both rely on property taxes, and they're so different. I think the library appeals to a much broader group of people, people who definitely vote against the tax levy every time it comes up, because they are, like, you know, senior citizens, for example, who don't necessarily care about the school system, but who do care about going to the library because that's where they get their source of entertainment. And I think, you know, I think the library, it's a lot easier for us to kind of tie specific thing. Like we could say we've increased our hours and that's a public good for everybody. And that's why we're, you know, like whereas with the schools, they're making a more like theoretical argument that's not tangential for a lot of people,
Right.
or tangible for a lot of people rather. So I think that, while there has been a concerted anti-tax sort of group that's been active in Cleveland Heights over the last year, having to deal with the schools specifically, I think if you look at, you know, nationally, statewide, and all over the place, public libraries are still extremely popular, and levies pass extremely easily. So I know that every time we talk about increasing costs or anything like that, you know, that there's this worry that, you know, we're going to have to justify it to the taxpayer. But I think that, you know, we're in a good position to do that. We can very clearly point to increased benefits that we can bring to the community, that we can tie to any levy that we may have to pass in the coming years.
Right. And any portion, the library portion of your tax bill is so much smaller
Yeah.
than the school levy. So it is a very different, an increase of library levy is very small compared to an increase in the school levy.
Correct.
Okay. Well, we'll just table this for now, but keep thinking about it. And hopefully by, March or April, we'll have enough information to really make a decision. And, if there's anything you want to dig around, compare, talk to other libraries, anything you want to do that you want to bring to this discussion, that would be great. We're not pretending like we've got it all figured out. So I could probably, we can find out what the average open hours of public libraries are in certain places. I think we can do that through our statistics that we get from the state and from the national ALA. So we'll see if we can, find out, how we compare to other libraries too. But of course, Ohio has better libraries than the whole country. So it may not even be worth even comparing. Okay.
I have a weird question. Is the Zoom chat part of public record?
Is what?
I don't know. I know it's recording it's recording our discussion. I don't know if it records the chat.
I don't believe so.
Right.
It's a video.
It's been a rough year. We're allowed to have a little fun. Be careful. Okay.
Next item on the agenda is just informing everyone that we're going to go through a board orientation, mainly for Tyler's benefit on Wednesday, the 13th at 3 o'clock. But when we send the Zoom invite out, we'll send it to all of you in case you want to participate or, want a refresher and all that. It's not a public meeting because we're not voting on anything. It's just an orientation meeting. So that's next Wednesday at 3 o'clock.
If any of you think you could join us, it would be, we can't have a quorum, but it might be nice for Tyler to talk one-on-one to a number of you. So if you are available and you want to just help us out, we'll be quiet and let you tell them. And we'll send you whatever written information we have ahead of time as well.
Yeah, we have a PowerPoint for it that even if you don't attend, we could send you the PowerPoint out with the agenda next week then.
Right. And yeah, so if we'll get the information out, but it would be nice to let Tyler have a chance to talk to you. Okay.
If we move on to the Personnel Committee, any questions or typos anybody found in the minutes? Okay, the next item is an executive session to discuss evaluation and compensation of personnel, mainly the director and the fiscal officer. Once we have the motion approved, Kim will leave the meeting, Nancy will leave the meeting, I will step out of the room so you can chat amongst yourselves, and then when we go, I stop the recording, I'll give you my cell phone number, and then somebody could just text me when you're done, and then I'll come in and we'll take the return from executive session and close. Is that okay? And technically, Tyler is not a member of the board, but the board has the ability to invite anyone to sit into executive session that you want. So I'm assuming he will participate in this, but he will not be part of the vote to go into executive session. Do I have a motion for executive session?
Okay.
Motion.
Lucas and Max seconded.
Okay.
Carlisle,
Yes.
Ms. Crenshaw.
Yes.
Ms. Llewellyn. Did we lose Dana?
I think it's
Yeah.
frozen.
Frozen.
Oh, okay. Mr. Gerback,
Yes.
Ziwamoto.
There's Dana.
Sorry, my mic was on mute. Yes.
Okay. And Mr. Tarakia.
Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna stop the recording.
Okay, and then we'll leave the meeting and Debbie will leave the room.
Yep.
Okay.
Debbie, I think I have your number.